There's something about watching a man who truly believes he's untouchable, not the fake confidence of social media posturing, but the bone-deep certainty that comes from staring into the void of failure and refusing to blink first. This isn't just wrestling history. This is the blueprint for how legends are born from the ashes of everyone who couldn't handle the pressure. Today, we don't just analyze quotes. We dig deep into the soul of a man who turned words into weapons and built an empire on the foundation of his own unshakable belief. These 5 quotes didn't just define Ric Flair, they defined what it means to be the man in a world full of people pretending to be. Quote 1, to be the man, you gotta beat the man. Picture this, 1985. Dusty Rhodes is breathing down Flair's neck, the common man's hero threatening to topple wrestling's aristocrat. The pressure is suffocating. Champions before Flair would crack under this weight, start making excuses, begin the psychological retreat that comes before physical defeat. But Flair? He leans into the microphone and delivers a line that would echo through 4 decades. This wasn't trash talk. This was Flair performing surgery on his own psychology, turning the target on his back into armor. He wasn't just saying I'm the champion. He was rewriting the entire narrative of what championship means. Before this moment, being champion meant you were good. After this moment, being champion meant you were the measuring stick of greatness itself. Look at his eyes when he said it. There's no doubt, no fear. Just the cold recognition that he's not just holding a title, he's becoming mythology. Every wrestler who came after had to wrestle with those words. Stone Cold, The Rock, John Cena, they all had to prove they could beat the man. Flair didn't just create a catchphrase, he created the psychological framework that every future champion would have to cross. But here's what's beautiful and tragic. Flair became so successful at being the man that he could never stop being him. Even when age caught up, even when the body betrayed him, those words had become his prison as much as his power. Quote 2. I spent more money on spilt liquor in bars across this country than you made last year. The 1980s. Flair is cutting promos in dimly lit studios, sweat beading on his forehead, not from exertion, but from the intensity of his own performance. This isn't about wrestling moves, this is about emotional warfare. He's facing opponents who represent everything he's not, humble, relatable, regular, and so he decides to weaponize excess itself. This line reveals something darker than arrogance. It reveals a man who understands that in America, wealth isn't just about having things, it's about having the freedom to waste things. Flair wasn't just rich, he was rich enough to be careless with his riches. That's a level of power that makes people either worship you or want to destroy you. But listen carefully to how he delivers it. There's almost sadness in his voice, like he knows this lifestyle is both his greatest strength and his most profound weakness. He's not bragging, he's confessing. This quote created the template for every heel who came after. The idea that you don't just beat your opponent in the ring, you beat them in life, in status, in the things that matter when the lights go down. It's the emotional brutality that makes physical brutality seem almost merciful. But Flair lived this quote too completely. Years later, when financial troubles hit, when the lifestyle caught up with him, those words became prophecy. He really had spent more on spilled liquor than most people made in a year, and it nearly destroyed him. Quote 3. Diamonds are forever, and so is Ric Flair. Picture Flair in his prime, standing in front of a camera after another victory, his hair perfect despite the war he just fought. He's not just ending an interview, he's creating a mantra that will outlive his body, his career, maybe even his memory. The words come out like poetry, like he's been saving them for exactly this moment. This is Flair's attempt to transcend mortality through sheer force of will. He's not just saying he's successful, he's saying he's eternal. But there's something almost desperate in the way he says it, like he's trying to convince himself as much as the audience. Diamonds are forever because they're formed under pressure, in darkness, over geological time. Flair understood instinctively that his legend would have to survive the same process. Pressure, darkness, time. He wasn't just comparing himself to diamonds, he was predicting his own mythology. This quote became self-fulfilling prophecy. Even now, decades later, when wrestlers want to evoke timeless greatness, they reference Flair. He didn't just say he was forever, he created the expectation that he had to be forever. And somehow, he delivered. But being forever means never being allowed to be human, never being allowed to age gracefully, never being allowed to just be Richard Flair from Minnesota. The diamond comparison was perfect, beautiful, valuable, and cold. Quote 4. Whether you like it or not, learn to love it, because it's the best thing going today. This is Flair at his most clever, knowing exactly how to push buttons and play the mental game. He's standing across from wrestlers who represent virtue, humility, the working class, everything America claims to value. And he's forcing them to confront an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the villain really is the most talented person in the room. The delivery is perfect, not angry, not desperate, just matter of fact. Like he's explaining gravity. This quote is Flair's masterpiece of emotional manipulation. He's not asking for love, he's demanding respect disguised as inevitable acceptance. He's saying, I know you hate me, but your hatred doesn't change the fact that I'm better than you. But there's vulnerability hidden in those words. He's not just talking to his opponents, he's talking to himself. Convincing himself that being hated for excellence is better than being loved for mediocrity. This became the blueprint for every great heel promo that followed. The idea that you don't need to be liked to be undeniable. You just need to be so good that even your enemies have to acknowledge your greatness. But Flair lived this philosophy so completely that he forgot how to be loved without being hated first. Even in his most vulnerable moments, he couldn't turn off the performance. The line between Ric Flair and Richard Flair disappeared completely. Quote 5, "My shoes cost more than your house." This is Flair at his most absurd and most honest. He's standing in front of fans who are struggling to pay rent, who work multiple jobs, who see wrestling as escape from economic reality. And he's rubbing their noses in inequality with a smile. It's cruel, it's ridiculous, it's absolutely brilliant. This quote reveals Flair's understanding that sometimes the most effective way to be hated is to tell the truth about inequality in the most insulting way possible. He's not lying. His shoes probably did cost more than many people's houses. He's just saying it in a way that maximizes psychological damage. But there's something almost vulnerable about the absurdity. Like he knows how ridiculous it sounds, and that's exactly the point. He's not trying to be reasonable, he's trying to be unforgettable. This line became meme-worthy before memes existed. People repeated it not because they agreed with it, but because they couldn't believe someone had actually said it. It summed up everything people love to hate about Flair: the excess, the arrogance, the absolute refusal to pretend he was like everyone else. But Flair became trapped by his own hyperbole. He had to live up to these impossible standards of excess, had to actually buy shoes that cost more than houses. The character consumed the man completely. These 5 quotes tell the story of a man who understood something fundamental about human nature. We're drawn to people who refuse to apologize for being extraordinary, even when we hate them for it. From "to be the man, you gotta beat the man" to "my shoes cost more than your house," Flair constructed a persona that was inspiring and infuriating, aspirational and repulsive. He became the American dream's evil twin, all the success, none of the humility. But here's what makes these quotes legendary: they weren't just performance. Flair lived them so completely that the line between character and reality disappeared. He didn't just play a rich, arrogant champion, he became one. He didn't just say he was forever, he made himself immortal through sheer force of will and words. These weren't just quotes, they were incantations, spells cast to transform a man named Richard Flair into something larger than life. And like all the best magic, they worked so well that even the magician got lost in the illusion. The tragedy and triumph of Ric Flair is that he succeeded completely. He became exactly what he said he was: the man, the measuring stick, the diamond that's forever. But diamonds, for all their beauty and value, can't feel warmth. They can only reflect light, never create it. Whether you like it or not, learn to love it. Because 40 years later, we're still trying to figure out if Ric Flair was the best thing going, or if he just convinced us all that he was. And maybe that's the most important quote of all, the one he never said out loud, the one that echoes in every wrestler who tries to follow in his footsteps. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. The greatest trick Ric Flair ever pulled was convincing the world he was exactly who he said he was. Who do you want next in this quote breakdown series? Drop your pick below.